Hello and welcome to Peaceful Soul, a space where we learn to care for our inner world, rediscover calm, and tap into our true strength, even when life feels completely overwhelming. Have you ever woken up in the morning, looked around your room, and felt like everything was in chaos? Work is piling up, family needs your attention, your body feels heavy, and your mind has no motivation to start the day. You know exactly what you should be doing, but your fingers won't touch the keyboard. Your feet refuse to leave the bed. Just the thought of facing a long day ahead makes you want to pull the blanket over your head and disappear. If you've ever felt that way, know this: you are not alone. Through years of working and studying mental health, I've learned that every one of us goes through seasons of not being okay. Sadly, society often makes us believe we must always be strong, always cheerful, always ready to perform. But the truth is, no one can sustain that energy forever. Life has its highs and lows, and it's often in the lowest valleys that we learn patience, resilience, and how to rise again, one step at a time. Here's the most important thing I want you to remember right now. Feeling exhausted doesn't mean you're weak. It simply means you're human. And the human brain is extraordinary. It can change, adapt, and heal. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. With small, consistent habits, we can literally reset our nervous system, regain control, and find hope again. I'll never forget Sarah, a young designer crushed by the pressure of her job and constant comparisons on social media. She told me it felt like being trapped in a long, dark tunnel where every step was unbearable. But when she started making tiny shifts, adjusting her sleep routine, adding just a few minutes of morning meditation, she began to notice a faint light at the end of the tunnel. That small light gave her the strength to keep walking. Maybe you're in your own tunnel right now: financial stress, work deadlines, or even an emptiness you can't explain. But hear me, you don't have to face it alone. In today's video, we're going to explore 7 simple yet powerful strategies, backed by science and real-life experience, that will help you stay clear-minded, keep your productivity, and most importantly, protect your mental well-being when life feels too heavy. You might be wondering, if I have no energy, how can I possibly apply any of this? The answer is, you don't have to change everything in one day. One small step is enough to start. Science calls this the ripple effect. Drop a single pebble in water, and the circles expand outward. In mental health, one tiny action can spark a chain of bigger changes. I know many of you struggle with self-blame, thinking you're not as good as others. You see coworkers keeping up with deadlines, friends posting happy photos, while you can barely get out of bed. But remember, social media only shows the tip of the iceberg. Everyone is fighting their own unseen battles. Instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself to yesterday's you. If today you manage to get up, wash your face, step outside for fresh air, that's already a victory. I once spoke with James, a successful entrepreneur, who admitted there were days he wanted to lock his office and vanish. But instead of drowning in helplessness, he chose to focus on the smallest possible task, writing down just one thing to complete. That simple step gave him relief, and slowly, the heaviness began to lift. Here's the message I want you to carry with you. Every transformation begins with one small step. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to keep up with anyone's pace. What you need is to reconnect with yourself. And little by little, rebuild your energy. So if you're exhausted today, let this video be a gentle reminder. You're not broken. You're not alone. And you absolutely can begin again. In just a moment, I'll walk you through each of these 7 strategies, from shifting your mindset and adjusting expectations, to rediscovering small joys and fueling yourself with positive energy. These aren't empty tips, they're backed by research, proven by countless people, and you can start right where you are. So, take a deep breath with me. Relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and open your heart to new possibilities. Welcome to Peaceful Soul, where your journey back to inner peace begins. When your spirit hits rock bottom, the first thing that usually surfaces isn't a solution. It's a flood of heavy thoughts. I'm not good enough. Everything is out of control. What's the point of trying? These phrases, repeated over and over, eventually start to feel like truth. But science tells us the brain isn't fixed like a machine. It's more like clay, able to be reshaped, rewired, and developed in new directions. Researchers call this neuroplasticity, and that means we can actually train ourselves to see the world differently. Sometimes, just one small shift in the way we think can transform the way we experience life. I remember Megan, a young nurse in Texas. After months of non-stop work at the hospital, she burned out completely. Every day she told herself, "I can't do this anymore." Those words became so powerful that they stole her sleep, her appetite, and even her desire to continue nursing. During one counseling session, we tried rephrasing. Instead of, "I can't do this," Megan wrote, "I'm exhausted, but I can learn how to take care of myself and regain my strength." That single change shifted her perspective. Over time, Megan realized that being tired didn't mean she was a failure, and that new belief became the foundation for her recovery. If this sounds too simple, remember, the brain responds powerfully to language. A study from the University of Wisconsin showed that people who practiced reframing, that is, changing how they word their thoughts, reduced anxiety symptoms significantly in just a few weeks. Instead of saying, "I failed," they learned to say, "I'm in the process of learning." This subtle difference activates the brain regions linked to motivation while calming those tied to fear and worry. In other words, the way you talk to yourself can literally reshape your brain chemistry. Take Ryan, a fitness coach in Florida. When his gym shut down during the pandemic, his first thought was, "My career is over." But after rewriting it as, "My career is shifting, and I can find a new path," he came up with the idea of launching online training programs. Today, Ryan is coaching hundreds of clients virtually, something he never would have imagined before. One incredibly powerful tool is adding the word, "yet," to your negative thoughts. Instead of, "I can't do this," say, "I can't do this yet." That single word opens up the possibility of growth. Olivia, a college student in New York, once believed she could never speak in public. When she reframed it as, "I haven't done it yet," she began to imagine that it was possible. 6 months later, Olivia delivered a confident presentation in front of her class, a milestone she once thought was impossible. Visualization is another proven technique, used by countless Olympic athletes. Ethan, a young basketball player I worked with, used to panic before games. Together, we practiced a simple routine, closing his eyes, imagining himself sinking shots, hearing the crowd cheer, and feeling confidence spread through his body. After a few weeks, Ethan reported less anxiety and a noticeable boost in performance. The brain responds to visualization almost the same way it responds to real experiences. Which means you can train your mind without even stepping onto the court. Now, shifting your mindset doesn't mean denying reality or forcing fake positivity. Chloe, a single mom in Ohio, tried telling herself, I'm fine," to push away her stress. But the more she resisted her feelings, the heavier they became. So we took a different approach. "I'm going through a hard time right now. And that's okay." Acknowledging her struggle while framing it in a gentler way helped Chloe release self-blame and discover practical solutions. Here's a simple exercise you can try right now. Rewrite your story. Pick one negative thought you often repeat, and flip it into a statement that leaves room for growth. For example, instead of, "I always fail at work," try, "I'm learning how to overcome challenges at work." Daniel, a software engineer in Seattle, practiced this daily. He wrote down negative thoughts in his journal and rewrote them in a more constructive way. After 3 months, Daniel noticed his stress had dropped dramatically, and he felt much more confident at his job. Of course, mindset shifts take time. There will be days when it feels like you've slipped backward. Madison, a young artist in Chicago, once broke down in therapy, convinced she hadn't made any progress. But when she flipped back through her journal, she noticed the language she used about herself had changed. Where she once wrote, "I'm a failure," she was now writing, "I'm someone who's still learning." That small but undeniable evidence gave her the courage to keep going. Learning to shift your thinking doesn't just improve the present, it lays a foundation for the future. Studies show that people with a more positive mindset recover faster from setbacks, regulate their emotions better, and are less likely to fall into long-term depression. Most importantly, they rebuild their belief that they can make a difference in their own lives. So ask yourself, What negative thought do you find yourself repeating every day? Write it down. Then give it a little space for hope. A little room for change. Because sometimes, just one new sentence in your mind is enough to open the door to an entirely new chapter of your life. One of the biggest reasons people burn out mentally is because they set expectations that are simply too high. We grow up in a culture that glorifies achievement, get top grades, build a thriving career, have the perfect family, and maintain a flawless image in the eyes of others. But the truth is, no one can live up to that perfect standard forever. When expectations are set unrealistically high, disappointment is almost guaranteed. And when disappointment repeats over and over, it chips away at confidence, leaving behind sadness, guilt, and sometimes despair. Take Brandon, an accountant in California. He pushed himself to earn a promotion within 2 years. He worked late nights, sacrificed friends, and neglected family. But when someone else was promoted instead, Brandon collapsed under the weight of failure. After we sat down and unpacked things, he realized his goal had been far too rigid. Instead of focusing only on getting promoted, he shifted it to learn one new professional skill every month. That small adjustment completely changed his mindset. He began to see progress each day, and the crushing sense of failure slowly faded away. Stanford research confirms this. When goals are broken down into smaller, measurable steps, people not only sustain motivation but also protect their mental well-being long-term. On the other hand, setting goals too high only fuels comparison and disappointment. Lily, an art student in Boston, once expected her very first painting to win an award. When it didn't, she labeled herself useless. But after reframing her expectation into finish one piece a week to practice technique, she rediscovered joy in the creative process rather than obsessing over outcomes. Adjusting expectations also means embracing your limits without equating them with failure. Noah, an entrepreneur in Chicago, once juggled 3 projects at once, convinced he could do it all. But his body rebelled, sleepless nights, weight gain, and eventually a hospital stay. That wake-up call taught him that saying no isn't weakness. It's wisdom. By focusing on one primary project, Noah found his stress lifted and his energy returned. This doesn't mean giving up on your dreams. It simply means pulling them closer to reality. Grace, a mother of 2 in Texas, used to pressure herself to work full-time, raise her kids flawlessly, and keep a spotless home. But when she allowed frozen pizza for dinner once in a while, or accepted that the house might be messy, the pressure melted away. Most importantly, she could enjoy moments with her children instead of drowning in guilt. One powerful tool is asking, is this realistic for my life right now? Samuel, a teacher in Denver, once set a goal to write a novel in 3 months while also teaching full-time and caring for his family. When he fell behind halfway through, he berated himself as a failure. But when he adjusted his expectation to write 500 words a day, he not only finished his draft in 6 months but also maintained a healthy balance in his life. And here's a crucial reminder. Stop comparing yourself to others. Hannah, a marketing professional in Seattle, constantly felt inferior scrolling through her friends' highlight reels on social media. But when she learned to measure herself against her yesterday's self instead of other people, she finally saw how far she had actually come. Another simple but powerful strategy is the 70% rule. Jacob, a programmer in New York, used to procrastinate endlessly because he was obsessed with making everything 100% perfect. By adopting the mindset of, get it 70% good, then refine later, he suddenly became more productive, saved time, and dramatically lowered his stress. You can try this right now. Choose one area where you feel pressured. Then ask yourself, what's a realistic expectation that allows me to grow without burning out? Write it down, break it into steps, and celebrate each milestone along the way. At the end of the day, adjusting expectations isn't about giving up, it's about creating a sustainable path forward. If you chase perfection nonstop, you'll collapse before you ever enjoy the journey. But when you set goals that are both realistic and meaningful, you'll keep moving steadily, and most importantly, you'll find happiness in the process itself. Mental health and physical health are far more connected than most people realize. Skipping meals, losing sleep, Or avoiding exercise doesn't just drain your body, it pushes your mind closer to anxiety and burnout. Research from Harvard shows that living a balanced lifestyle, eating well, moving regularly, and getting enough sleep can dramatically lower stress and boost mood. In other words, if you want a stable mind, start by caring for your body. Take David, an engineer in Texas. He thought he was dealing with a serious psychological issue. But the truth was simpler. He was only sleeping 4 hours a night and relying on 3 cups of coffee just to get through the day. Once David started going to bed earlier, eating a light breakfast, and cutting back to a single cup of coffee, he was shocked at how quickly his mind cleared. Sometimes, just a few small shifts in daily habits are enough to transform your mental state. Movement is another powerful tool. You don't have to crush yourself at the gym to see results. Lily, a nurse in Florida, committed to brisk walking around her neighborhood for just 20 minutes a day. Within 2 months, her stress levels dropped, and she was sleeping more deeply. Studies from the Mayo Clinic confirm this. Simple activities like walking, biking, or yoga can have a surprisingly positive effect on your mood. Nutrition acts as fuel for your brain. To create serotonin, the chemical that helps you feel happy, your brain needs steady, healthy energy. Jacob, a college student in Ohio, used to live on fast food and soda every night. When he switched to vegetables, lean protein, and water, not only did his concentration improve, but his stress during exams eased. Food may not be magic, but it's the fuel that powers your mental health. Sleep is another piece of the puzzle that often gets ignored. Some people brag about surviving on 5 hours a night, but long-term sleep deprivation can lead to both depression and anxiety. Hannah, a designer in New York, struggled with sudden panic attacks without knowing why. It wasn't until she set a consistent bedtime and powered down her phone an hour before bed that deep, restorative sleep returned, and with it, her emotional stability. Sleep is really the free medicine we so often overlook. The key is not trying to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight. Grace, a single mom, once gave up because she couldn't lose 45 pounds in 3 months. But when she started small, drinking more water, walking just 10 minutes after dinner, she began to see steady progress. 6 months later, she had lost weight, felt stronger, and was happier overall. The lesson? Real change comes from consistency, not quick fixes. Healthy habits also need flexibility. Samuel, a musician in Los Angeles, used to beat himself up for missing a gym session. But once he allowed himself to swap it with a quick set of push-ups at home, he was able to stay consistent without guilt. Sometimes, good enough is what keeps you moving forward, while chasing perfection only sets you back. A simple trick you can start right now is creating a morning ritual. Just 5 minutes. Drink a glass of water, take a few deep breaths, and jot down 3 things you're grateful for. Or prep a light, healthy evening snack so you don't reach for fast food later. These small rituals may seem insignificant, but over time they build a strong foundation for resilience. At the end of the day, your body is the foundation of your mind. You can't expect steady mental health if you neglect physical care. But if you nourish yourself with sleep, nutrition, and movement, you'll find your inner strength returning, strong enough to face whatever challenges life throws your way. When people think about mental health, most imagine medication, therapy, or meditation. But there's another factor that often gets overlooked, even though it has a huge impact: human connection. We're wired to seek belonging. In fact, Harvard's famous long-term study found that the best predictor of happiness and longevity isn't money or fame, it's the quality of our relationships. Emily, an office worker in Chicago, went through a period of mild depression after moving to a new city. Every day was the same routine: work, then back to her small apartment, with no one to talk to. Everything changed when she joined a local book club at the library. Those warm conversations with fellow readers lifted her mood. Sometimes, just a few genuine connections are enough to pull someone out of the spiral of loneliness. The truth is, loneliness is far more dangerous than most of us realize. Research shows that chronic loneliness raises the risk of heart disease, weakens the immune system, and fuels depression. John Cacioppo, a psychologist at the University of Chicago, once called loneliness a social hunger. Left unchecked, It doesn't just wear down the mind, it harms the body. 2. That's why social connection isn't just good for your mood, it's part of caring for your overall health. And building connection doesn't have to be complicated. Robert, a father in California, keeps a simple habit: calling his elderly mother for 10 minutes every evening. That short daily chat not only eases his stress but also makes his mother feel loved and cared for. Real connection doesn't need grand gestures. Sometimes a few kind words are enough to remind us we're not alone. Of course, not everyone finds it easy to expand their social circle. Sarah, an introverted student in Seattle, once felt terrified walking into big events. Instead, she started with a small art class of just a few people. Over time, she built close friendships that became her support system during stressful school years. The lesson: you don't need hundreds of connections. A handful of true friends is enough to make a difference. Another key factor is presence. Social media may give the illusion of connection, but research shows that face-to-face conversations, or even video calls, provide far greater emotional benefits than texting. Jason, a teacher in Denver, once found himself drained by endless scrolling online. But when he shifted his focus to outdoor walks with friends, his energy and optimism came back. The key isn't virtual interaction, it's real, in-person presence. One powerful way to deepen relationships is by helping others. Linda, a retired woman in Florida, volunteers at her church by cooking meals for the community. What seems like a small act gives her a renewed sense of purpose and lasting friendships. Science backs this up. Acts of kindness release oxytocin, the hormone that makes us feel warm, bonded, and connected. The most important truth to remember is that quality matters more than quantity. A deep conversation with one close friend is worth far more than dozens of shallow online exchanges. When you spend time together, listen fully, share honestly, and show up with sincerity, that's the real foundation of lasting relationships. And don't wait until you have time to connect, because life will always find ways to get busy. Schedule it in. Plan a monthly coffee with an old friend or a weekly call with family. When you treat connection as part of your routine, it becomes non-negotiable. At the end of the day, we weren't built to live in isolation. When you feel like you belong, whether it's to a family, a circle of friends, or a community, your mind regains a sense of stability and meaning. Connection isn't just joy, it's powerful medicine against stress and loneliness. By nurturing your relationships, you're laying the foundation for a healthier, happier life. Many people fall into a mental deadlock when they set their sights on a goal that feels too big. Our brains are wired to respond to overwhelming challenges with anxiety and procrastination. But when we break a goal into clear, manageable steps, suddenly it becomes achievable. Each small milestone acts like a rest stop, fueling our motivation to keep going. Behavioral science has shown that these mini victories trigger dopamine, the brain's reward chemical that keeps us excited and persistent over time. Take Mark, an IT specialist in Boston. He once set out to lose more than 40 pounds. But just thinking about that number drained his energy. His coach suggested a different approach: aim for just 5 pounds a month. Instead of obsessing over the finish line, Mark celebrated each small win. 6 months later, not only had he lost the weight, but he had also built the perseverance he had always lacked. Stanford research highlights the same truth. Breaking goals down is the secret to sustaining motivation. That's why therapists often encourage patients with depression to start small: make the bed, take a 10-minute walk, or drink enough water. These simple steps might look trivial, but they spark a powerful reminder: I still have control over my life. Rachel, a mother of 2 in Ohio, used to get stuck in a cycle of quitting. She dreamed of writing a book, but the thought of spending endless hours at a desk froze her in place. When she shifted her strategy to writing just 1 page a day, everything changed. Within a few months, Rachel was holding her very first manuscript. Those little daily pages, stacked together, turned a distant dream into reality. The beauty of breaking goals down isn't just that it feels more manageable, it's also that it builds flexibility. When you focus only on the big finish line, even a small setback can derail you. But with many milestones along the way, you not only enjoy the journey, you also have room to adjust when life throws you a curveball. It's like a long road trip. instead of stressing about the final destination. You stop at rest areas, refuel, and enjoy the scenery. Real success rarely comes from one giant leap. It's built from hundreds of small steps, repeated with patience and persistence. When you learn to celebrate every little win, you don't just move closer to your goals, you also grow stronger in confidence and resilience. And that resilience is what ultimately carries you all the way to success. Stress is, at its core, a natural response, our body's built-in alarm system that keeps us alert and ready to act. But when it lingers too long, stress turns into a silent enemy, wearing down both mental and physical health. The American Psychological Association reports that chronic stress increases the risk of insomnia, anxiety, and even heart disease. That's why learning to manage stress isn't just a nice option, it's an essential skill for living a balanced life in today's fast-paced world. Jennifer, a nurse in Houston, used to feel drained by endless night shifts. At first, she tried to simply tough it out, but that only made things worse. Then she started carving out just 5 minutes before each shift to practice deep breathing and jot down a quick note about something positive in her day. The result was surprising. She felt calmer, more focused, and lighter. Those small daily rituals became the medicine that kept her steady. Harvard research has confirmed that mindfulness and simple breathing exercises can significantly lower cortisol, the hormone behind stress. The best part? You don't need to sit for hours in meditation. Just a few minutes a day can make a real difference. Daniel, a business owner in Los Angeles, began by listening to calming music on his drive home. Within weeks, he noticed he was less irritable, sleeping better, and generally in a better mood. Physical activity is another powerful stress buster. Linda, a high school teacher in Miami, once battled severe burnout, but when she started a routine of brisk 20-minute walks after work, her body released endorphins, the brain's natural, feel-good chemicals. The simple habit gave her back both energy and peace of mind. Another crucial strategy is learning to say no. Jack, an office worker in Seattle, used to pile more and more tasks onto his plate, afraid of letting people down. The result was overwhelming stress and constant exhaustion. Once he began setting boundaries, focusing only on what truly mattered and politely declining the rest, Jack not only reduced his stress but also became far more productive. The key to remember is this: managing stress doesn't mean eliminating it entirely. It means finding balance and taking charge of your response. When you weave small practices into your routine, deep breathing, exercise, rest, and personal boundaries, stress stops being a burden and becomes a motivator that sharpens you. And when you can manage stress, you're not just surviving life, you're actively shaping the quality of it. At the heart of lasting mental health lies one essential foundation: finding meaning in life. When you have a reason to get up each morning, every challenge feels lighter. Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychologist and author of Man's Search for Meaning, once wrote, "A man who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Meaning is the compass that guides us through even the darkest seasons." Thomas, a veteran from Virginia, sank into depression after leaving the military. He felt lost, unsure of what purpose remained for his life. But when he joined a nonprofit that supports young veterans returning from deployment, Thomas discovered the joy of serving others. That sense of contribution gave him back his purpose, and with it, his strength to heal. Research from Yale University shows that people with a strong sense of purpose not only feel healthier but also experience fewer illnesses and live longer lives. And meaning doesn't have to come from grand achievements. Sometimes, it's as simple as knowing you matter to someone. Susan, a grandmother in Colorado, found meaning in caring for her grandchildren each day. That simple joy gave her a sense of being needed and truly happy. Personal passions can also spark deep meaning. Michael, a banker in Chicago, once felt suffocated by the monotony of office work. But when he began learning guitar in the evenings and playing with friends on weekends, he rediscovered a joy his career couldn't provide. Music became his fuel for the soul, helping him stay balanced and energized. The truth is, meaning isn't something handed to you, it's something you create. Whether through family, work, passion, or service to your community. When you know you're living for something larger than yourself, anxiety fades and inner strength rises. Scientists call it one of the most powerful mental medicines we have. So mental health isn't only about good sleep, healthy habits, or stress management. It's also about knowing why you live. When you find meaning in each day, life feels lighter, fuller, and filled with hope and peace. Together, we've explored 7 practical yet powerful tips: building quality sleep, adjusting expectations, maintaining healthy habits, nurturing social connections, breaking goals into smaller steps, managing stress, and discovering life's meaning. Each tip is grounded in science and brought to life with real stories, showing that change is always within reach. If you do just one small thing today, let it be this: start now. Because sometimes the smallest steps lead to the biggest turning points. And remember, you're never alone on this journey. We're learning together how to live healthier, happier lives. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If you found this content valuable, please hit like, subscribe to Peaceful Soul, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss what's coming next. May your days be filled with peace, joy, and a spirit that feels truly alive.